work that they would mute themselves and not us.
Okay, hi.
12:05. I know we're short one person for a quorum, but hopefully we'll get someone to jump in. So we'll have to skip the approval of the minutes and the agenda. There is a change on the agenda. Jan Lieber has been hung up by another meeting. He will be coming later on. So until we get another member to make a quorum to approve the minutes and the agenda, we'll go right down to the chair's reports. All right, so I'll start with the PCAC chair report. MTA board changes. All Como appointees are now holdovers until if Governor Hochul decides to appoint replacements, all of which will be subject to New York Senate approval. One Como appointee has already tendered a resignation. The Como plan to separate the board chairman and CEO positions is probably now dead in the water, but still remains to be seen. Certain proposed MTA capital projects, which have not yet been started, such as the track station immediately south of the existing Penn Station, proposed by the governor, prior governor, may be put on hold until the new governor, Kathy Hochul, has had a chance to review and analyze them. And that also pertains to some PA projects, such as the LaGuardia Air Train. Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, September 1st and 2nd, the MTA dealt with an historic rainfall and had to shut down all services, trains, buses, and subways for a number of hours. That's something that we might want to discuss when Chairman Lieber is here. All right, still no action has been taken by the federal government, despite our best efforts and the involvement of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer regarding releasing monies tied up in wage works accounts held by thousands of our commuters. We're still pursuing it, but at this point, it's not looking very hopeful. The process to establish congestion pricing here in New York City has commenced, and a number of hearings regarding this issue will seem to be taking place starting September 23rd. Lisa, did you want to mention something about the hearings?
Yep. As Jerry said, their meetings start on the 23rd. There is one that day at 10 in the morning and one in the evening, and we will be asking for volunteers to testify. It's broken down by region, but that does not mean that you need to be from that region to testify. It's really about the importance of congestion pricing funds coming to the MTA. So we are happy, as always, to provide that testimony. And we will share, if we have time later, we can look at the dates. Otherwise, we'll shoot out a link to everybody. And if you could let us know when you're available, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
There's 13 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Either 12 or 13.
Yeah, and they're scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, the first day.
You can testify at any one of them from any place, about any place. But they've done geographic.
Yes.
I think
there's
one in each of the 5 boroughs. I think there's one on Long Island.
Yes, there's Long Island,
Westchester,
New Jersey, and Connecticut as well.
There's one for the congestion pricing district, which is Manhattan below 60th, and then there's a specific hearing for those bordering, like Upper East and Upper West Side.
Mm-hmm. Right, but you, as you said, you can be from anywhere and discuss anywhere.
All right. The PCAC is working on getting the Freedom Ticket adopted, and a presentation regarding this will be made later in the meeting. PCA is also working on developing a more user-friendly website, and we'll receive a presentation on that later in the meeting as well. Pretty much wraps up the PCAC chair's report. Lisa, is there anything you want to add to that, or
just that we have 2 new staff people. 1.75 new staff people.
1.7.
Jessica joined us 3 weeks ago. This is Jessica's 3rd week. She is our new admin. We're delighted to have her. Let her say a few words about herself, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
But let me introduce our soon-to-be a whole other person. Is Kara Girl, who will be our communications and research associate, who will be joining us.
She's soon to be a person.
Well, she is a whole person, but she is officially comes on board on next Thursday on September 16th. So we are beyond excited.
Yes.
If you want to say hello.
Hello. Hello. My name is Jessica Fusio. I'm the new administrative assistant. I joined this great team from RTO. I used to be a New York City train conductor for 2.5 years. So I familiar with the company. Just looking to,
She's already been a great asset to us, and as you can see, we're much less stressed out. So, yeah.
I can see from the both of you.
The mask, you know, they mask the stress.
Yeah. But we are delighted to have both of you, and thank you.
Alrighty, so next up would be the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council's Chair's Report. The LIRCC wasn't hit quite as hard as the other parts of the region by Hurricane Ida, even though thousands of customers were inconvenienced. Service was restored on most branches over the course of the morning between 4 a.m. and 6:45 a.m. We also had another situation last week, which did cut down service. Fort Washington branch was out for most of the day. On Thursday, everything was restored by Friday. But again, just like with Ida, you know, we didn't do quite as bad as other regions. Metro North took a severe beating. I'm sure Randy will mention that later on. Capital projects such as the third track, the East Side Access Belmont Station, and Station Concourse are progressing nicely. I had the opportunity to tour East Side Access with a couple of MTA board members, as well as the Penn Station concourse work with Lisa and Larry, and was impressed with the progress on both occasions. Also, the new Westbury parking garage was completed and opened to the public in late August. The LIRCC received a request from the Connecticut Commuters Council, which represents riders on the New Haven branch of Metro North, to join forces with them to see what can be done to increase mask compliance. Unfortunately, over the last couple of months, a greater percentage of riders are not wearing masks despite the MTA's PA announcement blitz and ad campaign. We will be working with them to see how this can best be accomplished. A number of Long Island business groups, including the LIA, have signed on to a letter to the MTA chairman requesting that the Yaphank train station be relocated to a site closer to the Brookhaven National Laboratory. There are currently 3 sites under consideration, but this is pretty much a back burner issue for capital construction at this time. The Long Island Railroad is expecting a significant bump in ridership this month as New York City schools open with large numbers of commuting teachers, and many businesses are starting to recall workers to their offices, at least on a 2 or 3 times a week basis. How much of a bump will remain to be seen. The Long Island Railroad Commuter Council has called on the Long Island Railroad and MTA to implement new ticket types to address the new commuting patterns of many of our riders. In particular, a 20-trip peak ticket reflecting a discount similar percentage to a standard monthly. Indications are that management is receptive to just such a ticket. In the interim, the Long Island Railroad continues their off-peak, all-the-time policy. And that sums up the Long Island Railroad.
We do now have a quorum also.
And we have a quorum, okay?
And after the quorum, I have a question.
All right, so we're just going to double back quick, get an approval of the revised agenda. The revised agenda, just moving Jano down to the end of the list.
Or wherever he's
only because, whenever he comes in, we'll accommodate him. So we're going to proceed with everything in order, and then whenever Jano gets here, we'll slot him in.
I'll move it.
Second.
All righty, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda's been approved. The meeting minutes for June 3rd, did anybody note anything that needed to be corrected?
Gary, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion.
Looks like Randy was second behind.
I'll second it.
Andrew will second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so the meeting minutes are approved. Okay, do you have a question regarding my reports? Or?
Yeah, your report on Long Island Railroad, because that station you're mentioning, I have got a chance to visit the. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. There is a Suffolk County farm group that uses, they've been getting a lot of people going there. The problem is with that train, and that's the Greenpoint train, it doesn't run frequently. And the problem is people, saying it's very hard to get there. It's very challenging to proceed into the meeting. I'm at the meeting, I'm sorry. I meant to the farm because that station is the closest and it's a ramp there. It's beautiful. But if we move that location, it is going to be maybe a little problem if we can make sure we communicate with the Suffolk County Farms, which was now is in charge of Vanessa Locke.
Okay. Again, it's, I believe right now it's on the back burner. It's not a critical, I mean, the ridership out of Yaphank is this room.
Yeah.
Really, it's
Much less than that.
Yeah.
It's like,
maybe returning one of the old stations like Manorville would be closer to Brookhaven. Remember, they had Calverton and Manorville between Riverhead and Yaphank? They don't have those anymore.
No.
Jerry, I also left out, you mentioned about mask. You know that Long Island Railroad, you guys are doing the mask force, started yesterday, it's going for at least a week and a half.
Yeah.
That's been going like morning rush and evening. I think we need to make sure that goes out to a lot of people. How are you? To go out more because it's low turnout, maybe very less communication.
All right.
If you have a chance.
All righty.
Because I'm doing the Atlantic one.
Okay, I've only done that. Okay. All righty. Well, Mr. Lever has arrived.
Well, actually, Jenna, wherever you sit is the head of the table.
I just want to
Have a seat wherever you're most comfortable.
appropriately observe our social distancing,
Yeah.
such as it is.
Okay.
I can watch the sandwiches from this thread. So, how is it?
Thank you for coming.
Great.
No, really appreciate you coming. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Happy.
And I just got to say this, somebody called me Chairman Joe because I've had a few problems since. Remember that biblical reference? Yeah. But I want to say, because Lisa and Andrew and there are many friends here that Chris and you guys have been really supportive since I got in a couple of weeks ago and helpful, and I just want to acknowledge that because what we're trying to do now with in a sort of team building kind of way is obviously get everybody focused on how do we support the cities and the region's economic revival, and the flip side of that coin is how do we rebuild our business model, because this is I keep saying to people, I say, we work for the public and it's a public sector operation, but at bottom we are an $18 billion business that's lost half its customers, right? So we have an obligation to ourselves, to the organization existentially, but also to the public, and to take responsible steps to try to bring a ridership back. So that's really where I think you're going to find my focus going. And for the board meeting, Andrew, Brigman, we're I'm sort of mixing it up a tiny bit, and what we're trying to do is to ask the agency presidents to focus a little bit more on, like, what are the ridership trends? What are we doing to try to anticipate what riders are going to want? We love our riders. They have, but there are a lot of people who have been riding, who have some anxiety coming back to the system. God knows, we have a few fetchy riders as well, right, Andrew? But the point is we have to anticipate, and we have to try to make that experience of coming back with a lot of people, whether ideas about COVID transmittal have evolved since the beginning of the pandemic, and we're all focused more on aerosols and so on. But we have, a system where the ventilation system in commuter rail cars and subway cars is a lot better, God knows, than an office building, right? So these are safe. These are, scientifically relatively safe environments. With the use of masks and what you've seen in Asia, mass transit has not been a source of spread. So again,
Both NYU and the Sam Schwartz Company have done studies, and mass transit is not the spreader because the air is recirculated so many times per hour.
So, and especially because mask use is, it ain't perfect. It's something we have to try to do it, but it's at least. I don't know who rides when, but I ride in the morning and late at night. That's just my habits, right? And in the morning is really strong. I mean, we really have, it feels like almost universal compliance. And, you know, it's a little weaker, but it's, you know, in the evening, in the late hours when things, you know, I'm just saying factually, you know, that's what I'm seeing. It's, you know, it's a person, you know, it's one person in a car who's not wearing, one person who's miswearing it, you know, it's people are complying mostly. Doesn't mean it's perfect and we can do better. I wander around with masks in my backpack and give them out, you know, politely say, hey, you know, do you need a mask? And you know, obviously you don't want to, I don't expect everybody to have that interaction. Some people are more or less comfortable, but, you know, most people that I offer it to, you know, take it. You know, a few will give you, you know, the snake, you know, the evil eye, but not, most of them will take it and most of them will put it on and say, oh yeah, thanks, I forgot. Because, you know, on the street people are, you know, are not wearing as much as they were for a long time. So, but bringing riders back is the focus. Bring them back safely, bring them back, supporting the economic recovery. We have, you know, some slight indications it's premature, and Dave can be off the record on this, but with some, there's some initial positive indications that, you know, the commuter railroads, it's sort of suppressed by what happened on the Hudson line after the hurricane last week. But, you know, I think there are some initially, looks like some positive indications that, you know, that the Labor Day milestone wasn't a total zero on the commuter railroads, that, you know, there was some initial indications that may have been headed in the direction. More to follow. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. Obviously, the Jewish holiday changed it, and, you know, weather and many other things. But we're hopeful, and we're going to go out and talk to people like return to work is underway. So we're going to, you know, in the next couple of days, again, off the record, David, I have to do this because I want to speak honestly.
And anybody else who may be on.
Yeah. But we're going to roll out our Welcome Back New York campaign. We're going to be talking about, you know, how we're going to communicate with the public about what, you know, how mass transit is part of this incredible revival that New York is, you know, maybe suppressed a little bit because of obviously what happened with the vaccine, but I mean the Delta variant. But I think we are all confident it's coming, and we want to encourage and remind people why mass transit is great. So what the next thing is people ask me is like, well, you know, what did you learn from the hurricane? And, you know, this is a group of friends of mass transit. I mean, you got not just friends, passionate advocates and supporters. So I know you get it. What the hurricane reminded us is that, you know, one, our system is incredibly resilient. Think of the fact that, you know, obviously we have to address the issues of water penetration in the system and people's impressions that were from some of those social media videos and so on. But think of the fact that the system took water in many places that was up to the platform. It wasn't just over the rail, which, by the way, is the standard where we stop service. And you know, those standards enabled us to, you know, limit the number of people who got stranded. And it actually was you know, it's not taking people off a train that's out of station is a significant, you know, disruption to their lives, and it's a rescue process. But it was done safely and effectively for 17 or 18 trains out of, you know, I think it was roughly 200 that were in the system at the time. That 1 hour massive deluge between 8:51 and 9:51 p.m. changed everything. When we were running the rush successfully, people got home, and then that 1 hour period overwhelmed the street level drainage system, and all the water came into the system. Let's not kid ourselves. There are 10,000 ways that water gets into the subways. That's why I kept using that line, the subway is not a submarine. We are not a watertight environment. There's groundwater galore. The system is built mostly a trench structure with like a slab over it. And for generations, we know, you know, all of the uses, municipal, utilities, you know, private real estate poking holes in those slabs. And then you got the manholes.
Third-party buildings.
Buildings, yeah, and
so
there's innumerable ways. That famous video that everyone saw of 28th Street was actually a manhole. Water was coming up. It wasn't coming down. That's what I was just told today. I can't vouch for it.
if there's enough water to cover the third rail, is that the time that you decide?
Well, yeah, they take service out there. The standard, the operators are given flexibility for safety reasons to stop, irrespective. Their judgment, there's a safety challenge, but, which is not true of Asia, one of the reasons they had some terrible things happen there. There's more centralized control, but the general rule of thumb is when you get to the top of rail, at that point, they're advised to stop. But the system is incredibly resilient. We cannot forget, like, maybe I'm being, pardon the pun, too glass half full, but you can't forget that after that unbelievable deluge and what it did to the system, with how much water the system took, we ran service. There was a very truncated and very imperfect version, but it was rush hour. And I walked around this building, and there were a lot of people. I said, "How did you get here?" L train, A train. A lot of it was B division because the 7th Avenue RT, ironically, was down. We could have gotten it back in service, but they were pumping, and the sewer wouldn't take any more water. They couldn't pump it out because the sewer couldn't accept. So I had a discussion with, Deputy Mayor Fulhan, and we talked countless times during the night. That was the point of contact. And I think some of you know, when I got in after that crazy video of the woman 157th Street, I revived a kind of a lapsed collaboration with DEP about looking at what are the vulnerable locations that for water to get into the subway system, in mass quantities, having to do with topography and some other localized conditions. In the new era of climate change, we're finding out it ain't just coastal, right? We did a great job protecting the coast, but now we're facing a much larger problem because of flash flooding. So, we agreed, we need to accelerate that now revived partnership between the MTA and DEP and say, what do we do short term, especially to try to address some of these more vulnerable locations, and then, to start to talk about what do we do about the sewer system's capacity? Because if you have a hardscape system up top, right? That's what we have. It's New York, right? It's almost all hardscape, right? And you're just pouring water, and there's nowhere for it to go. It's going to go to the low point. So we need the municipal drainage system, the storm sewer system, to be improved. But sort of doubling back, you guys have been at the center of a lot of things that I've been able to do in the short time before, I started getting, a new emergency every 2-3 days. The buses event, which Lisa and Andrew participated, Chris, you were there. That kind of spoke to my approach, which is I have a great relationship with the city DOT commissioner, who I've known for many years, just from Brooklyn civic stuff, and we said, let's be more ambitious. Let's really try to get this, the idea of having a bus system that moves much more quickly. Let's try to get that, pardon the pun, accelerated. So you guys were there. We took a lot of steps on that front. Congestion pricing, I think we have moved from the point where people were, had questions about what was going on and what was the schedule, and is everybody trying to move this project along. I said openly, I think the MTA did, not an ideal job of communicating about what was going on in congestion pricing. Well, what was going on, again, I wasn't totally in the middle of it before I got the job, was this negotiation. In large part, there's substantive work going on. One, there was all the design work for this going on. Two, there's actual testing going on of the systems, which is a video, which is an AI system, a sophisticated, artificial intelligence system, which learns what types of vehicles. It actually learns what vehicles are of what kind, because you're using streets that will have a pedestrian on them and a bike and a moped and who knows what else, right? So the AI system is being tested at a couple locations where we control it. The modeling was being done. But most important, there was this negotiation going on about the whole approach with the feds, who are understandably anxious about what they clearly view as a very, very high risk of litigation, and they want, again, not to slow it down, but they're being pretty, shall we say, requiring us to be extremely methodical because they see a risk of litigation. And, you know, it's no secret, federal environmental law and standards do produce a lot of litigation, right? Some good, some not so good. In this case, that's a danger. So we got this process. It's 16 months long, and I think we started working with the advocates, including this organization, to make sure people understand what's going on, what's the sequence, and, you know, the complexity of the modeling of the 22 million people in 28 counties. And, you know, usually you're doing environmental reviews for a project, right? Where, like the Bayonne Bridge, the EA, apparently, the environmental assessment, which is the standard we're following, took like 3 years. It was 33 months. So that was 2 counties, right, with much more specific locations. So I think that people are starting to understand that folks are fast-tracking this, and there's a determination to move forward, but we're also working with a regulator who needed to be convinced they were going to meet the standards to protect against downside scenarios. So we made progress on that. We, you know, small things, but we did, you know, I said I want to do a little more on bikes to show bike friendliness. The practical reality is outpacing the MTA, right? The MTA policy. And sort of the idea of a bike permit to bring it onto Mass, it seems antiquated, so we got rid of that as well. You know, we're working a ton on what's going on in Washington. Hopefully that will grow our capital program, give us some more opportunity to grow the sustainability and the new investments that clearly we ought to make in the wake of the hurricane. And we're talking about fair policy, which this organization has tabled some interesting ideas about. It's sort of premature for me to say yes, yes, no, no. But we're looking at it both in the short term, like the idea of trying to do some things which function to, you know, to be incentives, however small. Maybe they're just reminding people that we want their business back. But the long term, which at the end of the day, it's going to be a board decision, is we need to have, you know, a fair policy. But we've foregone the fare increase, which is a big step. Remember, that's been in effect for 10 years, and the idea of steady 4% increase, you know, hard thing to give up. But the board bit the bullet because we got to get the customers back and support the recovery. And now we're starting to think about the longer term of what kind of fares would be attractive in the era of hybrid work. I don't think anybody wants to just do that, but there's no question that some of the ideas that you guys have tabled are very worthy of consideration, especially as respects the idea of equity and using the commuter railroads to build more connectivity for, you know, disadvantaged communities and communities of color. So we're moving forward on that. You know, that's really what I want to talk about. I think we've gotten some things accomplished. We always had a couple of weeks where emergency management was the principal activity. But with the new governor, you know, who's been very supportive. I spent, you know, obviously some of it because of emergency stuff, but I spent a fair amount of time with her. She's very supportive of the MTA. Very interested in, like, what do we need? What additional resources should I be, you know, trying to help you? I'm just alerting everybody we're going to need to talk about the financial cliff we're facing in a couple of years when the COVID relief money runs out. But she's been, you know, she's been very quick to step in and get involved with MTA matters and very supportive of what we're doing and, you know, what organizations that advocate for mass transit are doing. If people ask me about, the final thing I'll say is people ask me about climate change. And I say, you know, and the MTA, and I said, no, first off, the MTA's business, we are the antidote to climate change. We are the proper response to climate change. climate change. Everything we do is about creating a land use and transportation model that is the way we overcome climate change. And, you know, you think about, you know, what's in our capital program, you know, zero emissions fund. Signaling so we can provide more service to more people, right? Another incentive for people to get out of cars and to use mass transit. Accessibility so that everybody can use mass transit, and on and on and on. So it's not just when people talk about climate change in the MTA, and you guys are a strong amplifying voice. We need to just remind everybody that investing in the MTA is the way that we, you know, fight the battle about climate change. We're imperfect, and we have a long way to go to become everything that we all want to be. But fundamentally, you know, we are 40% of the riders in this country, and you know, we're a long way short of that in terms of what we get from the feds. We've had good support from the city and the state. But in the long run, investing in the MTA is a huge pillar of the battle against climate change. And, you know, so when people talk about it, I just remind all of us not to just immediately focus on, like, you know, whether we can keep water from coming in a manhole, when we know the MTA bounces back pretty strongly from water. You know, this last episode is the bigger issue is, are we going to be making the investments to allow us to attract riders and allow New York to grow without becoming more of a climate change negative, right? That's who we are. So with that, thank you for indulging me. I'm always happy to be with this friendly group. And I just thank you again for coming out, you know, and supporting us in the press and supporting us at events. And everything that you guys do. So credit to Lisa and all of you. Questions?
So we'd love to be able to support you in the campaign that is going to be coming out. So please let us know how we can do that.
Yeah.
We're not the 38 strong that we should be, but we are still, our voices are loud, we're out there, and we're regional. So please let us help you further. And, you know, we are riders, and we represent them. So please, you know.
And by the way, it's just sort of the question of participation at the board meeting next week. We made it so that people can participate remotely or in person. You know, there's been this bounce back and forth between, is the open meetings law in effect or not? That created some confusion, but we want everybody to feel empowered to participate. So, and even if we run out of time, or for some aspect of that participation, we're going to take all of the information and make sure that the board members see it all. So I think we wanted to get rid of that issue because we want people to feel like this is an open participation situation. What else, Lisa?
Does anybody in the room have a question? I know Chris does.
Yeah, okay.
I was going to wait for you, someone else to go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
John, it's also good to see you in person in Broadway. You mentioned about masks as number one. I've done mask force, starting from Coney Island, and I've seen the problem is, and I know Transit 34 is also backing this up as well. We just see people in that area from Coney Island as well as parts of Brighton Beach on the B&Q will not put on a mask or say, I don't have to wear one, I've been vaccinated, or I don't have to wear one because I don't like it. And I don't want to go into other words, but that's one major issue. It's not just on the B&Q, it's also on the B1, the 36, and the 68. They're abusing the bus drivers, and then we lose a bus. And that's a bigger issue there. You mentioned also about the fare stuff. There is a concern in the disability and senior community areas that the monthlies are supposed to be discontinuing or supposed to be revalidated. There is a lot of worriness because the ACT committees have been very concerned about that because partial people who have disabilities or seniors, because their budget links with Social Security or Social Security disability, it's part of their budget when they do the monthly. And it's easier for them to get on access to the bus, the subway to bus, where their nearest accessible train station, if it works at times or it does not work at times. So there is some concerns on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's premature. I'm not the super director in this thing, but I think the goal is to have, the first goal of this phase of fair policy is to focus on, are we responding to new patterns of travel that, we're not, I don't want us to just guess, right? We'd like to do some incentives to bring people back, but I think it will require a little bit more study to initiate fair policies that will be sustainable. You don't want to change it every Tuesday and Thursday, as my grandmother would say, right? And that ultimately, permanent fair policy is a board matter, so we have to provide the board with some, an analytical work. So those are all totally spot on, legitimate issues. On the mask stuff, look, we have, there's no question that there's a group of people who are, for whatever reason, kind of ideologically bringing their personal ideology into a public space. But, when you use a public space, you kind of agree to rules of behavior, right? Yeah. That are set collectively. This is just part of living in a community and living in an orderly society, right? So we try to persuade them. We're also working with it's a little slightly different strategy on each of the properties, but we're trying to reinforce it with maybe some more law enforcement visibility. We can't have conductors turning into policemen. That's not a role that they can play or they're willing to play. And but we're trying to convey a sense that that there are people who are, that there's presence of law enforcement, so we can do it, and to do it in a way that doesn't mean that, because remember, when you have somebody get into a drama and then bad things happen, you actually end up taking cops off the beat, and maybe in many cases the best thing we can do is have visible law enforcement presence so people see them. If they're having to drag people back into the station house to get that may have a negative effect on the overall impact on the situation. Does that make sense, Chris?
Makes perfect sense.
So we're trying to be strategic about how much you get into arguments. New Yorkers are great. I mean, this is one thing I'm a lifelong New Yorker. New Yorkers are used to dealing with, most people play by the rules. We treat each other well in public spaces. I made this comment when we were asked about that jerk who started attacking a woman, that was on social media because she was wearing a mask. I mean, how ridiculous is that? New Yorkers are good. They figure out how to move away from people who are behaving ways that, I don't want them to have to do that. But I also believe that we can kind of messaging aggressively, that people ought to comply, that they need to comply. Those yellow campaigns were great, right? Our How to Wear a Mask campaign is great. Yeah. It really, it really shows the MTA can do effective marketing. But keeping to push the message out, I would like it, this is off the record, Dave, I would like it if the police themselves were a little better compliers. Okay, Dave, you got that, right? Off the record.
And others.
I'm dealing with it. We have to deal with it in an appropriate manner. Okay, can't just get into another huge fight with the NYPD, right? So we're trying. New Yorkers are really doing well. New Yorkers are. Let's give people credit. People are complying. It's very, it's been a long time. Being respectful of each other most of the time. We just need to get through this and encourage people to comply as much as possible.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm glad that you said that you'd be interested in getting law enforcement a little more involved. I mean, we're not looking to get people arrested, obviously, but if you hit somebody in their pocketbook, you'll get their attention. So I'm just saying, if you have police officers on the train, just spot checking every so often. If commuters see that someone else gets a $50 ticket, they're going to be more likely to put their mask on. And you can be selective about where to deploy your people. Like you mentioned, in the mornings, the regular everyday commuters, the people who are on air coming into Penn Station between 7 and 8 o'clock, 95, 96, 98% compliant. You get your people going out to the Hamptons on Thursday and Friday afternoons, 75% compliant, maybe, you know. And maybe those are the people, I know you don't want to drive them over to the Hampton Jitney, but maybe those are the people that maybe need to get hit with a $50 fine to get their attention. The other thing I just wanted to say before you leave is I was extremely impressed with the way we bounced back from the last weather incident.
Yeah.
The average person doesn't see it because all they get are the reports, there's no service on the Hudson line. If they saw pictures of the washouts and what you guys had to deal with, just like some of my own commuters on Long Island, our washers out for a whole day. The ones on social media that saw the waterfall at Great Neck Station, they understood. Those people were like, it's amazing they got it back in the day. So, I mean, it was a really great recovery, and I know most commuters would probably be mad at me for saying this, but I really like the way you guys shut it down when you had to. There are times you're just going to have to do that to protect your equipment and to protect riders, because if you had kept going any longer, you would have stranded more people out in the middle of nowhere. It would have been a bigger disaster. Yeah, there were some people that had to sleep in Grand Central Station. There, you know, it happens. But I mean, that was what, a once in 100 year storm. I mean,
that's what they say.
That's what they say. Yeah, we'll have another one 2 years from now. But so no, I thought it was a great. I know it was a very difficult move and tough for you guys. But the fact that you put it out, and you were very good about that too. Like, listen, we're going to shut down. I think it was what, 11 or midnight or whatever, and we're going to try and resume at 5 o'clock. I can't speak for the city, but I know Long Island Railroad, 5 o'clock, my 507 train came through Patchogue right on time.
No, they ran the railroad. I gotta give a lot of credit to Phil and Rob and the whole team. They really did a job.
Yeah, they did. They certainly did.
And you know, you had the PW line was back in operation for the evening.
Yep.
You know, so it was unbelievable. With I was out there with the governor, and there was a serious washout. All the track, all the ballast was fouled. You know, you had switches that were had debris in them. They needed to be cleaned out and retested. This was not a small, and that was a relatively manageable one. If you'd seen, I went up to Greystone on the Hudson Line. You know, like you have to understand, this is a hill probably 200 feet in height that basically lopped off a chunk of the hill, fell onto the tracks, which are right by the Hudson River.
I know what you're talking about.
Randy sent us a picture of that. It was amazing.
And
whole embankments fell down.
Yeah, no, and you saw people's patio furniture. The section of their backyard's gone right down the embankment. And our team, railroad people said they hit the, eventually said, we can't clean this up. We got, my old C&D crowd. They pulled in, one of the bigger contractors. They got 450 cubic yards of stone up there in a day. They stabilized the slope so that service could resume. It wasn't just cleaning out the track. It was the stability of that compromised slope, which, by the way, had a couple of cars on it. I mean, there were vehicles that came when the whole thing collapsed. So there were 3 of those up and down that one area, very steep. It's in sort of northern Yonkers.
And there was such a long wait till the next train. I guess it was good that patio furniture was down there, huh?
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate Jerry. We said I'm going to convey it. You'll convey it to the railroad.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It was, I was talking to them all through the night, and they made that hard decision, and they executed to bring the service back. And they had the patrol trains out there because there were trees down. They pre-positioned all the tree cutting capacity they had. They really had planned it out. Really did a nice job.
One of the things I think that helped too was that the MTA is getting a better feel for how to handle social media and whatever.
Yeah.
The day of the storm, there was a picture of a patrol train in front of a tree that was down. and mention this is patrol. This is why we're running patrol trains, because you have people who are, I hear the train going by. How come I can't get on it? How come there's no rip? But I mean, things like that explain what you were doing and why you were doing it. It made perfect sense.
You gotta make sure the track is tested and safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the GO notices, it's good that you explain why people are going through this inconvenience, what they're gonna get out of it.
Especially a lot of accessibility reroute was created. A lot of people liked the way they had to go to a different line.
Does anybody, on the webcast, the webinar, the Zoom, have a question? If so, please either raise, Andy Pollock, what a surprise. I see your hand. Does any of the members have a question? We can take you first. You can either raise your actual hand or your virtual hand.
Panel.
Okay, I can see everybody. Okay, Andy Pollock, it is asking you to unmute.
All right, good afternoon, everyone from Grand Central Terminal. So I'm going to make this brief. Jano, excellent presentation this afternoon. I truly believe that you are the right person to lead this agency down the line and going into the future. And I'm looking forward to when you convene your first board meeting this upcoming Wednesday.
Thank you, Andy. And we've been, as I said, there are a lot of different activist organizations represented here, and we appreciate your work as well. Thank you again. So what else? Lisa, I'm probably turning into a pumpkin momentarily.
Nope,
No, that's fine.
Thank you so much.
We're delighted.
Thank you,
We're
guys.
thrilled that you reached out to us today. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anna. Thank you, Julia. John, thank you, John. And please,
I'll take you up.
and Julia.
Way too many.
Yeah, Chairman, a cookie, anything, please. Cookies, always.
On the chat, is that free?
Oh, that's you? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking forward to seeing you next week.
I'm aboard. I did twice.
I'm not running the meeting.
I know, but I did. Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna do what we can do. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to have a follow-up. Thanks. Because I wanted to ask a question. I raised my hand twice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
a board
I didn't see
member.
you.
Okay. But I was addressing the chair.
My apologies.
Okay. I don't want to. Sure. Jano, of course, resiliency has always been your focus in your other position, and now this. Could you share with the group anything that's being done now about the power backup situation at the operations center? We had the failure.
Yeah, we're in the middle of working that through. I want to be responsive, but it's sort of premature for me to get into that. But we're going to.
A couple of outside firms have been hired to look.
Yeah, no, that's
right.
It is right, actually, but the process is still underway. And
You could cycle back to us and let us know.
Yeah, no, and I will. And listen, nobody at some point will the first of those firms will be reported on, and then I'm happy to get into it with this group more. It's just I have to let that process play out a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Understood.
Thank you.
Apologies, Brad.
Yeah, because I monitor emergency management operations, and they were great with getting information out, as you said, about closures or things. This other failure was significant, and as the oversight board, we need to make sure that that question isn't swept under the table. There was significant capital investment in this, and it didn't do what it was designed to do.
Momentary Con Ed blip. Everything went back. We went on our emergency power,
Right.
and then when we tried to go back to our regular power, the system shut down.
Right. So this was a significant failure, and even though they did all the other things wonderfully, this could make us very vulnerable.
That was a totally separate incident.
Yeah,
That was about a week before, right?
But they
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
we had another storm, the prior, and it was in the aftermath of that storm. It was Henry.
Henry,
Right.
Okay.
But one thing you did notice, that the governor was right on top.
Yes.
I mean,
He made the NCA hire these two outside firms.
Well, but we'd like him to tell us
down the road, what's happening, because there are more storms coming our way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
You're right.
Unfortunately.
Sorry to see.
No problem.
Alrighty, so to get back on track, no pun intended, it'd be the, Andrew, it'd be your
I
report.
think Metro North, I don't think Randy gave it.
Yeah.
No, you're on the list next and then Metro North.
Oh, okay.
Just going down the agenda.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so, obviously, you heard from Acting Chair Lieber that, Ida brought torrents of water into the subways. Some of the photo images on the news were horrific. I don't believe I would go down in a station when I saw water up to the level of steps that was pictured here. There are some stations that have a raised step that stops the occasional small storm from going down the steps. Every station does not have a raised step, but no amount of raised steps would have been enough for this kind of storm. So we obviously need more pumps. We need more inflatable bladders, which they're talking about installing, which can be put into effect the minute you hear about a storm and cut off water. But they also have to look into third-party water coming down into the subway system from buildings above, stores, that sort of thing. They said they would look at that, but that's something they have to look at because a lot of the water and debris on a regular basis, not storm-related even, comes from third-party people above stations. Obviously, you know there is new leadership at New York City Transit. Craig Cipriano, the former head of buses, is now the head of New York City Transit. Craig is knowledgeable. He admits that he is much more knowledgeable about the bus system than the subway system. Hopefully, he's a quick learn because the subway system is so important to the economic vitality of the city, the region, the whole Northeast. And Frank Anacaro, who was in the maintenance department at buses, is now the acting head of buses. So Frank
will be our guest speaker at the next Transit Artists Council meeting.
Indeed, he will, and he has been very responsive when we've had issues, as has Craig. So responsiveness is an important part of the leadership, and we look forward to seeing Frank. Frank is a good guy. We did get a tour at the Pitkin Yards for Transit Riders Council's traditional August meeting field trip of the R211 fleet. These will be replacing some conversational seating cars, which upsets me, but obviously they have to be replaced. They're old. And the R211s have some very nice features. They have wider doors, have lighting by the doors to alert people what side the doors will open at. Some very other really important features between cars in the engineer's cab, motorman's cab. There's some new features for the operator of the train. So these cars are very nice. For wheelchair users, they will be wonderful. However, when we did observe these and I saw the door layout, I knew that they did not lay out exactly the same as some of our other fleets. And many of our stations, as you know, have had humps installed on the platform to coincide with where the doors are. These will not line up with those humps. Maybe one of the doors will, but because they're wider and in different locations, they don't line up with the latest other car equipment. So stations will have to look at that and level out the platforms so that these will all be useful. Otherwise, it's a ridiculous look backwards.
I want to pull a Trudy for a moment. I don't normally interrupt, but the consist and the way the train's arranged, also you'll have areas that are for the disabled, not at the hump, but at the end of the train. So there needs to be signage or awareness that there'll be other areas to facilitate boarding, or maybe not, I don't know.
I think they're going to go into testing in 2022, but won't actually be in regular service until early 2023, if I heard correctly. And we won't have enough of them to go into service until then anyway, but...
and that they next year. Or next summer is when the open gangways come.
The gangway next
the open gangways, we'll get a few of them next year. Yeah.
Andrew, they're supposed to go into service by next year.
I don't see how that's...
Don't look at me, I'm just telling you that's what they're...
I recall the superintendent saying what you said.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Testing next year, but in service, full service on 23, because we won't have enough of them anyway, but
We'll have to see.
Hopefully, Kawasaki will deliver. They make a great car. So, as you've likely seen on transit apps and or illuminated billboards, electronic billboards in the stations, we are running as much service as we can with the crews we have available. And that has affected several lines, the C, the F, the A in some cases. It's come to like 25 to 30 minute headway at the time. So we have been asking, what are you doing to speed up the hiring? We know there was a hiring freeze, retirements, layoffs, and all of that. They have said that they are speeding up the process by which they hire bus and train operators. Train operators was an 8-month process. They think they have lowered that to possibly 6, maybe even 5. We want to make sure that's a safe method that they're using to speed up this hiring. It's great that we get the folks back, but it has to be safe, obviously. So we're watching that closely. But if you see those on the electronic signs, or on your apps, we're running as much service as we can with the crews we have available. That's a sign we don't have enough crews. And that's a shame, because that's a put-off for people who want frequent service, want social distancing, and want frequent service. So stay tuned on that one. I have been talking to Demetrius, who we had as a speaker prior. There is some improper signage and improper announcements taking place in the system. It's a complex enough system. We got to have the correct announcements and correct signage. I have been working with Demetrius and with Sarah Meyer about this. There was a strip map that completely eliminated the Dyckman Street station on the A train. How does this happen? Who checks this stuff? I can't be everywhere, obviously. But they are looking at this. Is that the regular maintenance? Is that Sarah Meyer's department? We need to know who's responsible for these errors. All of the conductors now have scripts. Whether they follow the scripts, because obviously service on weekends is different, service during GEOs is very different. I have sent Demetrius praise about some conductors who have been right on the money with all the changes that were taking place on a weekend. I don't want him to think I only complain. I want to give kudos when it's done right. And they have some great conductors and some great stuff, but some things are being missed, and we want to make sure that's not going ahead. Because, New Yorkers are having sometimes, I'm giving directions all the time, when there's a GO on the weekend. Can you imagine how a tourist feels when they're here? And they're looking at maps, and I'm saying, that's no good today. So, we've got to do a little better on that. And pretty much that's it, Jerry.
I just have one thing.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Probably the only complaint I really had about the recent storm was communications in the subway. There was a glitch on the Long Railroad too, but they weren't giving you the proper, because they were juggling everything around. But to let riders know, like I came in that Thursday morning, went up to catch my E train. People are there. No one's telling you there's no E train. You wait, and then all of a sudden the A comes through.
On the local track?
On the local track, and then finally somebody said, oh, there's no E trains, after I sat there for 15 minutes.
There was no signage to that effect?
No signage, and nobody on the platform.
Announcements at all, Andrew.
That's terrible. That's the day after the storm?
The day after the storm. That was and maybe the people who were supposed to come and give you the direction couldn't get there. I don't know, but
we've got to communicate.
And then, like, then I said, well, I'm getting out of here. So that's like, well, it's the 4, 5, and 6 even. Are they okay? So who's walking across the Madison? I saw the B4 bus. I'm not much of a bus person, M4 person.
At the end of this
meeting, I took the M4 up, and everything was fine.
At the end of this meeting, I'm going to show you an app that has real-time information and has been right during every GO and every.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to show it to you.
Andrew, can you show it to me as well? Because as technology, I'm just going to add.
It's really good. It's better than the official app.
Because right now, as the chair of the Actor Technology Committee information, I did not. The information was so many errors. Even I caught some errors. They had the B train running, but not as a B. They always put them as a Q. And I'm going like, what's wrong with it just saying B to 96? Because in the morning they were having issues. They were going over.
Yeah, they were routing them up.
They were going to 96. And then everyone in the bright line saying, oh, thank God it's running. But again, as I'm going to back up what Jerry's saying, there is no communication at all. The only communication you heard from one person told me, and I know Randy can hear me from here, Metro North was giving better accessibility reroutes to other train lines. Long Island Railroad also did, but nothing with our subways, nothing at all. It was lack of announcements. And it was like people waiting on the Queens Boulevard line was nothing, no cross honoring until later that afternoon. And it's not Long Island Railroad, but it needs to be communicated between subways, it needs to be a little more better, especially if something happened on the B&Q, like a stalled train happens, there's no communication on the Brighton line, the F line, or the N and D, period, unless you tell us there's a derailment.
I think we're going to have to speak with Sarah Palmer's department about this. Sarah Meyer's department, excuse me. All of a sudden I'm in Twin Peaks. And deal with the communications issue, which we will do.
But I can't.
I mean, you have the full screen electronic billboards showing you a strip map, and it's facing the local track, and it's for the express train, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Joel is sending,
that's just driving me crazy.
Joel sent out information that's in the chat about a website that showed that where the service is running. As Andrew knows, one of my pet peeves is that I don't care what other apps or what other services will tell you what service is running where. The MTA's apps and services that should.
Well, the live map will show you for sure.
But not everybody. That's a website. That's not
It's on your phone.
as long as you put it on your home screen. It's not an app. It's a link to a website.
Oh, but with a shortcut, you're bingo. You're right there.
It's a link to a website.
Yeah.
It's not an app.
Right.
So it's the MTA's apps and service that should give you the information. I shouldn't need to have 5 apps on my phone to get what's the right one
you
and
don't
like
actually
guess
need
what's
5.
right.
And actually, Lisa's right.
I shouldn't have to keep changing them to get the one that's the most accurate.
You just need one app, and that's what we said at the last technology meeting. That is the issue what we're seeing. It needs to be one app for Accessoride, one app, the same app for, like, if I need to know how's Metro North, how's Long Island Railroad, Accessoride, and subways and buses, all in one.
And Staten Island Railroad.
And you're right, Lisa, I'm sorry, Staten Island Rapid as well. But I mean, all in one means everything.
Chrissy, are you good for right next week?
All right, let's
I'm trying to cut you off, but
go to
Randy. We have to do Randy's report, and then we want to do a couple of presentations. We want to give them enough time, and just so you know, we have a hard stop today at 1:50 because there's a board briefing that me and Andrew and Randy have to attend. So, moving on. Randy, you're up.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. Hope to see you all in December. Well, my report was distributed. Did 2 press events about wage works. There's nothing been in the newspapers lately about it. Do we need to follow up on this with Senator Schumer's office, Lisa?
I've been following up with them. They're otherwise occupied right now.
Yeah, everything. Okay. Then Lisa and I were at the 3rd Avenue station in Mount Vernon, where 3rd Avenue Bridge, where they opened the beautiful job they did out there. I mean, it was really a very nice event. Station Manager Program is back. Press event at Grand Central just happened. I was in a city that day going with my wife to see the Van Gogh exhibit, so we got to watch it live in person. The CDOT change of schedule is not something most people are interested in, so I go over it. I guess the most important thing lately is that the storm did all the damage. And it seems that as lucky as Long Island was this time, Metro North's Hudson line really suffered. And the explanation by Jano covers that. I'll yield a half a minute to our observer on who sees everything on the Hudson line and from his vantage point. Walter, you want to give a quick 30 seconds update on what you see out there? Right, because we don't have
trains are running. I see Amtrak going by, and Metro North trains, from what I can see, and they're passing by, they seem to be pretty much on schedule now, which is what I hear. I know they suspended service late last night, and I really don't know when they reopened it. I don't know that.
This morning.
5 something this morning.
This morning.
Okay.
Yeah, they went regular this morning.
I think they've done a pretty good job considering what they were up against.
Yeah, well, they're still right now they're only running a very limited service on the Hudson line, so there's no word yet on. And actually, the committee, Metro North Committee, hasn't received any communication from Kathy or the staff yet about what's going on. So hopefully they'll get it back. It's a major problem they had up there, and really that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for Andy? No.
All right, you're back my time.
All righty. So now we get to presentation time. So, the Freedom Ticket, phase 2, now more than ever.
Now more than ever. As somebody said recently, best use of now more than ever, right? So we're actually really thrilled to show you, to give you this sneak peek of Freedom Ticket 2 presentation. It's an overview. We're looking at a more general and more specific release on or about September 22nd. That's going to go into more detail. Bradley has been working on this for 2 years. It's the next phase of Freedom Ticket, which is now in practice as the Atlantic Ticket Field Study that was developed by the New York City Transit Riders Council and put into place by the Long Island Railroad and has benefited thousands of people, as Bradley will discuss.
And was always meant to be the first of an expanded series of this kind of fare option,
right,
to get more people on the commuter rails, because we have this wonderful rail infrastructure running through our neighborhoods, but it's priced out of the reach of many of their residents.
And as we all just heard Jano speak about, there is an appetite certainly for finding ways to get riders back on board by looking at both short and long-term solutions. And we think we've got some. So, Bradley, take it away.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And I definitely have to say that, coming from myself and the PCAC team, we've been working on this report for a year and a half, and because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to shelve this for a while and figure out how to reposition it to make it work for not only riders but the MTA. And again, our Freedom Ticket efforts go all the way back to 2015 when we first released our first Freedom Ticket proposal, and that finally got implemented in 2018. So we're really happy to finally be at this point and get the thing off the ground and running. And we really think that this will be not, just good for riders, but also for the region and the MTA. So we're really excited to be presenting this today, and we're looking for a hopeful September 22nd official release of the report with all the full recommendations. So for 4 main reasons, we think that now is the right time to implement the Freedom Ticket expansion project. Right now we have historically low ridership, we have a changing travel paradigm. The MTA board has signaled a strong interest in restructuring fares and the need to reduce long travel time. Also, there are exciting system expansion projects that will soon come to fruition. As we all know, the MTA's ridership has taken a drastic hit because of the COVID-19 pandemic. As of this last June, Long Island Railroad's ridership has rebounded at 40% of pre-pandemic levels, while Metro North has rebounded to 36% of pre-pandemic levels. And while riders are returning to the system much faster than the forecast by McKinsey and Company, ridership is still expected to reach just 80 to 90% of pre-pandemic levels by 2024. Most recently, in the MTA's July financial plan, they used the midpoint of these projections to figure out what the ridership would look like beyond 2024 into 2025. And for Long Island Railroad, they found that the ridership is expected to return to 86% of pre-pandemic levels by 2025. Metro North, not as great. They're expecting it to return to 76% of pre-pandemic levels by 2025.
Bradley, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You talked about the McKinsey recommendations, because transit has already surpassed their...
Exactly. And that's why I mentioned that the riders, especially on the subway system, are coming back much stronger than on the commuter railroads. And then with the July financial plan, they recalculated that and looked at the midpoint to see what it might look like beyond those projections.
I mean, it was a safe projection to do what they did. I know why they did it.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of this is being really compounded by the changing travel paradigm. We now have telecommuting, and people's travel times and patterns have completely changed. In fact, a recent survey conducted by the Association for a Better New York found that 1/3 of employers have indicated that the predominant work style moving forward will be a hybrid of in-person and remote working. Again, the MTA board has signaled a strong interest in restructuring fares to not only promote equity, but also to help get riders back on board while at the same time bringing in much needed revenue to the MTA. And we believe that the model within Freedom Ticket will really help these efforts. As we all know, Freedom Ticket efforts in years past spawned the Atlantic Ticket field study in 2018. This program has reduced commuting rail fares at 10 select Southeast Queens and Brooklyn Long Island Railroad stations. And one of the ticket options is a weekly pass. It gives you a weekly Long Island pass and transfers to the subway and bus network. And this is all for the low price of $60 per week. When you add those two fares together, when you have the traditional peak Long Island Railroad weekly pass, and you combine that with the weekly Metro card, that total price is $108. $60 is a way much better deal. That's over a 44% reduction when factoring in both of those fare types. This has allowed thousands in Southeast Queens to reduce their once 2-hour plus one-way commutes down to just 45 minutes.
And maybe cut out some driving.
Exactly. And so these people, just imagine, they're not just getting an hour back to their day, they're getting multiple hours back to their day. So this really benefits a lot of the hardworking people in the region. But there are still those who must travel to work. There are nearly 300,000 Freedom Ticket expansion area essential workers. Providing them with flexible fare reductions can drastically improve their quality of life and the economic vitality of our region. Furthermore, system expansion projects like Eastside Access, Long Island Railroad's third track, and Penn Station accesses 4 new Bronx stations are just around the corner. As an example, it is expected that when Eastside Access is in operation, it'll be diverting nearly 65,000 daily commuters over to Grand Central. This will allow for new capacity gains at the newly envisioned Penn Station complex and will provide improved options for those who need to access Manhattan's east side. And this would be taking advantage of a new and impressive terminal that we've all seen just recently underneath Grand Central Terminal. So it's very, very exciting. So the bottom line is the MTA and riders would like these options that Freedom Ticket can provide. Providing riders, especially our region's essential workers, with more equitable fares will help attract them back to transit and help fill thousands of empty commuter rail seats, all helping the MTA and its operating agencies gain much needed cash. Freedom Ticket can and will be, if implemented, the backbone of our region's recovery efforts and hopefully attract drivers out of cars in time for congestion pricing implementation, all while reducing CO2 emissions. It was recently reported that MTA bridge and tunnel crossings have come back to almost pre-pandemic levels, while transit ridership is still largely lagging. So the MTA must start thinking outside the box and find more creative ways to incentivize riders to return to the system. So fare reduction strategies, they have worked in the past and they can work again. Again, the success of the NYC TRC-inspired Atlantic Ticket program has sold over 2 million tickets and is continuing to grow. This is generating nearly $16 million in revenue for the Long Island Railroad. Fare reductions have been implemented in our region in the past as well on Metro North's New Haven line. In the mid-90s, fare reductions were implemented and in many cases increased ridership anywhere from 10 to 34%. Beyond our region, in Los Angeles and in Boston, both past and present, they have tinkered around with fare reductions as well. And some of the commuter rail lines in the Los Angeles region have resulted in 50% increases in ridership and, of course, increasing revenues as well. Currently,
with what you have up there for the Fairmount line on the MBTA, they've instituted a subway price fare for the Fairmount line, which is largely within city limits, as opposed to a commuter rail fare.
Right. And what they've done is, because they've implemented that, I believe, back in September of 2020, they got that going, and they did start with the pilot program on the Fairmount line. And what's really great about that, which is in line with our Freedom Ticket proposal, is like what Andrew said, you're able to transfer between the subway and that commuter rail service, which is really great. All of these examples have generated increased revenue and obviously ridership for these agencies.
Bradley, I have a question. Just generated by what you were talking about. But when East Side Access opens and the Atlantic branch is relegated to a shuttle, do we think we want to reconsider the price?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
They haven't made any announcements officially that is going to happen.
And we've been opposed to that from the get-go, right?
I've spoken to Bill Ang about service plans once East Side Access is open, once Platform F is fully functional in Jamaica. And I believe there will continue to be through service to Brooklyn in rush hours. It's the off-peak hours where you would have shuttles from Jamaica to Brooklyn.
Okay, I haven't heard that.
I'm going to verify that. Jerry,
That was the last I heard. They haven't finalized anything, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, then, but if it's not, then it's something we should consider price-wise,
Long Island Railroad 88 Task Force did bring that up the last meeting, and it's still going to stay where it is because the ridership for Brooklyn to Queens is getting very heavy. There is a time that train, you have to let that train go ahead and wait for the next one behind you in rush hour. There's been increasements.
I mean, there's going to be real rebellion among Long Island Railroad riders if they had formerly a one-seat ride to Atlantic Terminal or an across-the-platform transfer, and now they're going to have to go up across the platform and down.
Andrew?
Yes.
When I was the chair, I think we passed the PCAC resolution asking them not to have the shuttle service. Not that it means anything.
Well, we can check on that, Randy.
Never asked.
That sounds familiar, but that doesn't mean they're going to listen to us.
Yeah.
But we're
The platform is live, and I saw it in use.
There is one problem with the platform. You see, there's only one elevator. If that elevator goes out, that person is stranded unless they move that train further up, turn them around, put them on the middle of the platform, and get an elevator for them. But that's going to be there's an ADA issue going on too.
All right, Brad.
No, you're fine.
Sorry, Brad.
So this next slide is my favorite slide. It shows the travel time reductions if the Freedom Ticket expansion is actually implemented. For those living in Northeast Queens near the Bayside Long Island Railroad Station, if that was priced more affordably, they would have a quick 28-minute trip into Midtown Manhattan. If you look at those who are currently using the 275 subway and bus fare, in this example, we have the Q13 connecting to the 7 train. That's 82 minutes compared to just 28 minutes. That's an hour longer each way for those passengers.
Oh, that number there is the
Minute.
It's the minute. It's not savings. It's total travel time.
Total travel time.
I see.
Yeah.
He's actually is right.
So again, that being able to take the Long Island Railroad would save those riders 1 hour each way. We also have a little bit better option with the QM3 Express bus. That would take a total of 69 minutes to get to Midtown Manhattan. However, the Long Island Railroad still is much better.
And what does that use the Long Island Expressway, that bus?
I believe so.
Okay, that's subject to traffic.
Exactly. And that's the
Which is
problem.
why
These are not
Atlantic
reliable
Ticket is
travel
doing
times.
so well. The express buses from Southeast Queens rely on the LIE.
Exactly.
And,
So this is when I got these times, this is basically during regular service, not a lot of congestion. So if you do have congestion, these travel times will be much longer, and the buses actually contribute to that congestion as well. So it is problematic.
Just being nice for the express.
So in the Bronx, we chose travel time from the Morris Heights Metro North Station going into Grand Central Terminal takes just 25 minutes. The nearest subway connection is the Burnside Avenue Station on the 4 line. If you were to take that same trip to Grand Central, it would take you 41 minutes. Unfortunately, not everyone lives right next to a commuter rail station, nor do they live next to a subway station, so they would have to access a bus in order to get to their subway connection. In this example, it's the BX40, which you would have to tack on an extra 20 minutes to your travel time just to get to Grand Central. The express buses, as you can see, this is very extreme. The VXM4 from approximately the same area to Midtown Manhattan will take you a whopping 94 minutes compared to just 25 minutes on the Metro North Railroad.
So Bradley, the Burnside Avenue example, I mean, that's a fairly fast trip on the 4, especially after 125th Street, it runs express. But if you are walking distance from the Burnside Avenue 4 train, it's likely you're going to continue to do that rather than pay the fare on even Freedom Ticket, unless Freedom Ticket gives you transfers to other things.
And that's the main thing. That's
the key.
As you know, it's your idea. Freedom Ticket, the beauty with Freedom Ticket is you have to have that transfer, especially for city riders, to have that transfer on any mode that meets your needs, whether it be commuter rail, bus, or subway. Those are Andrew's words. That is ideal. There's a lot of people who are traveling into either, whether it be Penn Station or Grand Central, but that's not where their journey ends. They need to be able to transfer to something and have it be at an affordable price to get to their final
Exactly,
destination.
but I think the point I'm really trying to make is, if you're walking distance to a subway, you're going to likely continue to use that.
Right.
If you have to take a bus to a subway, then all bets are off, and Freedom Ticket is really attractive.
Exactly. And it just depends, where the people are traveling to, what they're able to afford. But basically, the bottom line is riders need more options, and this would definitely do it for them. On our next slide, so basically, this report, as I mentioned before, took many different iterations. Before the pandemic hit in early 2020, we did a ridership analysis of the 2019 speed count data for Long Island Railroad and Metro North Railroad. And what we found was during off-peak hours, there was ample room to provide Freedom Ticket discounts. In fact, some of the trains traveling between Jamaica and Penn Station during off-peak hours, some of those trains were running 90+% empty. So they're basically running mostly empty. And those seats were going unused, not generating any revenue whatsoever for the MTA. Fast forward to 2020, the onset of the pandemic, we were fortunate enough to be able to get the seat count data for Long Island Railroad, and we did a comparison between 2020 and 2019. And as everybody knows, the MTA's ridership in 2020 was completely decimated. Freedom Ticket discounts would definitely work. And now here we are in 2021. We're in September. Ridership, as I mentioned before, still remains drastically low. It is coming back more so on the subways. Again, Long Island Railroad is back at 40% of pre-pandemic levels. Metro North is back at 36% of pre-pandemic levels. This still indicates that there are thousands of unused seats that could be priced more affordably and generate revenue for the MTA. The visual to the left, this is one of my sneak peeks of our infographics that we want to put out. Basically, this diagram is just showing where the current overall ridership is right now. Long Island Railroad ridership is still down 60% compared to pre-pandemic levels. The green seats represent the empty seats. Gray seats represent the seats that are currently full. So there are still plenty of seats that are going unused.
And it's really important to fill those seats, because otherwise somebody in some department might say, oh, look at all these empty seats. Maybe we don't need to run this much service.
Exactly. And we don't
that hurts everyone on the line from the end points.
And we do talk about levels of service in more detail in the report, which will be coming out soon. This slide is just the same visual, but just representing Metro North numbers. Metro North ridership hasn't come back as strong as Long Island Railroad, but it's not too far off. It is down still 64% of pre-pandemic levels. Again, the green seats represent all the empty seats.
The green seats don't represent patio furniture on the Hudson line?
No,
Okay.
no, that's already being used.
Okay.
That's splattered with mud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, PCAC has 3 core recommendations. This is just the overview of the recommendations. Again, the report is coming out officially on September 22nd, where the details of these recommendations will be explained in more detail. First and foremost, the current Atlantic Ticket pilot program has to be made permanent, which is a longer process, but there are more immediate actions that can happen right now to improve purchasing options and marketing strategies to reach more riders. The second main recommendation is to expand the Freedom Ticket concept to all commuter rail stations for both Long Island Railroad and Metro North Railroad, including Penn Station and Grand Central, with transfers. This is key, with transfers to New York City Transit, subways, and buses. And the third recommendation, we do not want to forget about our suburban friends. We want to make sure there's implementation of off-peak and reverse peak discount pilot programs on both commuter railroads for riders traveling to and from New York City and within suburban zones. And that is the main overview of our recommendations.
And I just want to point out that in terms of the shorter term and the longer term recommendations, as Jano did note, some of the changes that would need to take place in fare policy would need to be signed off by the board, and anything that would be a permanent change would need board approval, and would need fair hearings or would need to go through an entire process. However, there is the ability to make to institute and implement pilot programs,
Right.
As the Atlantic ticket remains at this time.
So, real quick, let's see, someone else is the meeting. Hold on.
Marisol has her hand raised.
So real quick, I have just one final slide. My thank you slide. I think it's not working now. But basically, we implement an expanded freedom ticket now, as many essential workers who cannot participate in the work from home dynamic for obvious reasons. Their travel times, as well as others, can be well over an hour and a half each way when taking local buses to the nearest subway connection. When they could be taking the commuter railroad, it was priced more affordably with transfers to the subway and bus network. Their trips could be as short, in many cases, as just 30 minutes each way. Suburban commuters pay hundreds of dollars each month to travel in and out of the city, especially when having to pay for subway fares on top of parking fees. They too need breaks as well. We see this as providing a more equitable fare system, attracting riders back to our system, supporting economic recovery efforts, and filling empty seats with fare-paying riders. We have heard from the MTA board their interest in restructuring fares, and from our very own PCAC leadership, and we believe that this is a great, hopeful partnership in moving forward and welcoming customers and encouraging them to come back to the system. And that's what I have for you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Marisol has her hand raised. We have Peter Ramos from Metro North suggested instead of comparing Burnside Avenue versus number 4 versus Metro North, is a better comparison Williams Bridge versus Gun Hill Road via the 4 or Fordham M&R versus Fordham Station stops.
Those are much further north, so obviously they're much longer trips.
Right,
Yep.
or even Woodlawn or Marble Hill.
Yep.
So
yeah, there are many examples to choose from. The reason why Morris Heights was chosen for this presentation is because it, as well as 3 other Hudson Line stations, are the furthest from subway connections. So we chose that example because people, if they live closer to that station, they would want to access that station.
Especially that's near the New Haven and Harlem, because Hudson at the Yankee Stadium, it doesn't stop until it gets to the Fordham on the almost near Edith end.
Okay. All right. Marisol has her hand raised. Marisol?
Hi, how are you? I actually appreciated the fact they used Burnside because of the topography of the Bronx, right? On the west side, there are so many hills and curves, and just thinking about what that route would look like, having the ability to go from one mode of transit works well for a whole host of reasons.
Right.
And so I appreciate that. The other thing is,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
as we move towards the new 4 stations, the Freedom Ticket would also help to mitigate some of the parking concerns that everyone has, because the stations are not being built with parking. So the Freedom Ticket would seriously mitigate those concerns and obviously provide a better service for all involved.
Yes, and 3 of those 4 new stations are far from subways.
Right.
Yep.
And we're really looking at those 4 new stations, Marisol. Those are great Freedom Ticket stations that, you know, we've long said that those are prime locations to be implementing this program. Also, we have heard from the borough president in the Bronx, and also with many others about the topography in the Bronx, and how, as Edith used to say, all the glacial moraines create a lot of different elevations. So you have that situation in the Bronx. So if you're able to get to a Metro North station that is easier to access because of that aspect than a subway station, then that is they
are well aware of the topography of the Bronx, which is why they listened to after the public testimony at the Bronx bus redesign hearings, and they're changing. They're not doing 2 of them because it required going up a steep hill.
Right.
Does anybody else have a question? Chris?
Hi.
I had no idea.
That's okay. I was just playing. making sure. But no, I agree with Marisol because she's correct, because Burnside is a very heavy station. When they did have to shut the 2 and 5 down, 5s were going up to Burnside. That's one thing, because the ridership on that 4 is great. Even when the Yankee game is on, it's forget it. You have to pray to get on a 4 or a B or a D sometimes. But Bradley, also, we should also get a chance to look also to study where the accessibility is, because with that freedom, because when we worked on the freedom, you know, Queens Village was forget it. And it's still, today, getting more crowded as ever, because you have other buses that start there, or buses traveling more in parts of Queens and the border of Nassau, because it's an easy connection there. Yes, there's no parking there, that's a suicide mission. The other question I do have is,
just to go to your point, right? Okay. So a lot of the stops on in Queens on the Long Island Railroad, not all of them in Southeast Queens, right, have been made accessible.
Queens Village is ADA accessible.
Yeah, so they've been, but all on the in Southeast Queens, there's been projects in the capital plan.
Yeah,
so that has been helpful toward the accessibility points that you're raising.
Yeah, and he knows why.
Some of the points about bus connections are included in the report. So these are all good points that we've captured in the larger scale.
And that's why I'm not worried about it. I'm just, giving a little refresher, because in the... I'm worried.
You do sound worried, Chris. That's why
he's worried, because I'm not going to say it again, so he knows that answer. But no, I'm not worried. I'm just doing as Edith will say. We got to look at the accessibility pieces in, the Bronx, because Fordham and some other stations in the Bronx, you do see people that want to go up north, or finally, if say the 4 or any of these other lines are down, they do rely to use Metro North trains as well. The express buses, and I'm glad you did put those numbers up high, Bradley, because forget it. I have my counterpart in the Bronx. Forget it. For her, if the train is out, she'll just turn around, go back to her house, and say, "Let me know when the trains are back to normal." She's not going to stress herself on that. But I hope we can work on if you ever do the Freedom ticket. If it's going to go, once it gets to Grand Central, I hope that could be merged with the Long Island Railroad. So say if someone wants to transfer from Grand Central, from Metro North to a Long Island Railroad, that's something we need to look in the future. I didn't say today, I didn't say next year.
Wait, all will be revealed.
Yeah, I know.
Stay tuned, stay tuned.
Right. He's already blushing over there.
You had a slide that mentions making it easier to purchase it. I mean, it doesn't show up as the first option, even though it's available. Exactly. It's not on e-tix yet. All of that stuff.
We didn't go into detail on the recommendations here. This is more of a sneak peek overview.
Yeah.
Right. There are a lot of really deeper dive into the recommendations.
So it's like Prego spaghetti sauce. It's in there.
Yeah.
I just want to
this was just a sneak peek until we actually release the report, and then it'll all be shared with the world.
Yes.
And you'll let us know when the press conferences are.
Of course.
Yep.
Okay, since there's more to come, is there any other pressing issues right now, or?
We have the,
Oh, no, I want to get to the website.
Oh, okay.
I want to be sure that we put it in.
No, I agree with Jerry on that one, yeah. I'm done. I know, because
Are there any other questions?
I'm sure somebody else has
teamwork, Andrew.
Yep, nope. Okay.
Alrighty, so that takes care of the Freedom ticket. Thanks, Bradley.
Yeah. Bradley, you want to just go right, why don't you just
and
do the
we're going to go
website?
right next to the PCAC website, just to get a quick preview of what's going on.
Yeah.
Sure, so, okay, so we have been, we've embarked, well, when Sheila was here, Sheila Benesh, was here, and even before that, we had started on a project to upgrade our website and to bring it more up to date and to bring it more into
user friendly.
More user friendly. That's nice. Sorry, you guys need to go. Why? And so what we've done is to look at bringing it into something that is a little fresher, that incorporates the colors of each of the councils. And you'll see we have the ability to change the pictures. And what we're going to do, see, Bradley, this is what I mean about the different screen sizes too, right?
Exactly. It changes.
This is also mobile ready. So you'll be able to play around with it. We'll send it out to our members.
Lisa, can you, real quick, can I just interject? Can you scroll up to the top of the page?
I'm trying.
If it works.
Right here? No, here.
No, the top of the page that you were, the home page. Just click PCAC logo.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
So we don't have, if you can visualize and remember our current website, what makes this website more user-friendly is before we just had the council acronyms labeled at the top, but no one knows what LRCC, MNRCC, what any of that means. And so people had to dig to find out actually like what we represented. This is more divided up now by the content, so you can see the commentary, the reports, and our events coming up. And then those are tagged by the appropriate councils. So it's that aspect of it made it from the get-go very easy. When you first land on the site, you can easily see who we are. We have the definitions right below each of the councils, so you can see exactly what they do. And when you want to learn more, you can do a deeper dive by clicking those buttons.
Right. And on the website that we are still using until we move over to this one, there's no definition of what PCAC stands for anywhere on the homepage. So that was something we needed to address immediately. That was job one.
Are those people always going to be on our homepage?
As you know, we will be able to change the picture.
Okay.
It'll work and
Yes, we
So it's not going to cycle, is what I'm getting at.
no, it will not. As you know,
Okay.
as you know, it will not be rotating pictures.
Yes.
Right, but we will be able to change them. And Walter has already offered to send us a number of pictures, so we are going to share. And we know that many, if not all of you, have photos. So we're going to share. We're figuring out the right mechanism for doing that. But we're going to share a Dropbox or a link with you. Personally, I'd like to see people for each of the councils as opposed to just trains. So, because that's what we do. We represent riders, right? So that's something that we're working on. This is still hasn't been launched officially yet. We're working on that. We're working on some of the language and some of the. You see, there's placeholders here, but we're still working on it. We're still in development here because not every day can be January 1st.
Yeah, and I don't know why that only shows up on my computer. Not
it shows up on mine too.
Does it?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
But we do have a list of our reports. With Kara here, maybe our next annual report will be 2020. Who knows? Or we'll do a 2021, 2020.
Yes.
But if you go into, let's pick one, Road Community Council, and let's learn more. We have an overview. We have an overview, right, of, that'll be rotating very quickly, right? It'll have a BMO on it.
Show platform F.
Right, right.
Hey. That's very faint print.
So we have information on what each of the councils is, mission statement and goals, number of members and appointments, commentary, members.
That looks just like Jerry.
Well, it is.
Jerry.
Anyway, it looks like he's wearing the same shirt.
Yeah, no, that was a long sleeve shirt. Yeah.
No, it's not the same.
We did receive from those of you who sent us pictures. We have them. For those of you who did not, we don't. We're going to get. We're going to figure out how to get photos from other folks as well.
Yeah, and we do have. I know that several of you have sent in your photos. Again, like Lisa said, this is still not live yet, so we still have some stuff that we're working on. Mm-hmm. With the photos that were sent, I'm going to see if those will actually fit into their areas, and if they don't, we're going to have to get other pictures, but we will work on that.
Yeah, we'll speak with you about that. And so this is what we will do is send you, our members, a link to this so you can look at it as we continue to populate. Over the next week, myself, Jessica, Bradley, and Kara, after the 16th, will be working on bringing this up to a point where in the weeks to come we'll be, able to release it publicly. But we're really excited about it. We think it's a much better reflection of where we stand now. It's more modern.
Much colorful.
And it's colorful.
It's
you know, we're continuing to work with the text editor and our developer to fix any of the glitches and any of the
nice and enlargement.
And I want to give just a quick shout out to our text developer. Adrienne Cantor has been really helpful with this. She's helped us finesse a lot of the language in this to make sure that there's things that, you know, if there's a lot of repetitive statements, to get rid of those, to flesh out the language and to smooth it out. So she's been very instrumental in helping us with that. She's been absolutely amazing. Yeah.
When do you expect it to be live?
When we get the when we can finish what we're doing by the end of the month.
Okay. Yeah, this last week, Jessica has, you know, gotten her feet wet and really has learned WordPress.
It rained very hard.
Yes,
Yeah. Aside of the rain.
And so she's been very helpful in trying to get some of these last minute things uploaded. There's a lot of things, everything has been taken care of, but there are some, you know, smaller details and some text edits and pictures and stuff like that that still need to be fleshed out. But we are almost there.
Great.
Guys, if you doesn't finish on the end of the month, don't even worry. Try to make sure you take your time because you don't want to cause any viruses. Because when I had to re-update the advisory council's website, I had to run a test before I do anything. Make sure the link from the outside is working. You know, you want to make sure, and you want to catch no viruses because there's been viruses.
But
when I say testing,
they're vaccinated.
That's not that kind of virus. I didn't say anything.
Yep. And Ron is saying that font is hard to read. It's very low contrast, but you know, with the contrast, once it's on your own computer, you can adjust it.
Yeah.
But that's something that Ron, we can send you the link to, and you can see if there are still issues. Then we can take those to our developer also. So thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Good work.
No, great. No, looks great.
I want to thank Bradley for jumping in. We were sort of as a two-person troupe, running around in circles with each other, and then Bradley sees this, and then we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So,
alrighty, so that wraps that up.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Congestion pricing, can you just put those up for a second?
Yes, you can never pull that up.
Yeah. I don't think we pulled that up. And to go back to the Chrome.
Yeah.
And it's right on top of that.
I can't see this in a row.
Right.
Hold on.
While Bradley's doing that,
Thank you.
was there any old business that anybody felt we needed to bring back up, or are we good?
Old business, we're fine.
Okay, everybody good?
On the computer.
Here, public meetings. So you can submit comments virtually and in person. There will be 10 virtual meetings. And these are the dates on the 23rd, on the 23rd, on the 24th, the 29th, the 29th, AM and PM, the 30th, October 1st, 4th, the 5th. And as you see here, as I'm scrolling through, it's broken up by different areas. So it would be great, and again, not necessary, but to have our members from, say, Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, and or Westchester counties testify on that day, Long Island on that day, but not critical, or not only, because the overarching issue is really that the MTA needs these funds. And it's essential that there be money that come to the MTA to work on not just the resiliency projects and the modernization projects that we've talked about more recently, but the things that we've been talking about for years. There are additional meetings in environmental justice communities that Jano was talking about in terms of those that were particularly.
That New Jersey meeting's going to be a hot one.
Oh, yeah. No, they're not happy.
Oh, no, that's going to be it.
Well, there's several that are New Jersey related. Tri-State Transportation has been working on fact sheets about what it's going to cost, what it's going to bring, what the benefits are going to be to each of the aspects of the region. And Tri-State, and they have a specific one to New Jersey as well. So they're offering to share that with everybody who's with us and other advocates and other folks. So that'll be helpful too.
And we can send this link out to all the members.
And we shall. Yep.
All right, yeah, let's send that link out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if there are members, again, who wish to speak at a certain hearing, please let us know so that we're aware and we can work with you on the testimony. Okay, nobody here has any questions on old business? Was there anybody on the outside that had any old business?
Finally.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I said finally got a picture of the whole table.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Good idea.
That's bird.
I haven't had that the whole meeting.
All righty, so we'll, apparently it's all the old business we need to go over. Any new business, anything?
Jerry, I have some new business, and I was thinking what you were saying earlier. Is there a way for all divisions we can put a thank you letter go out to all those hard workers who had to fix not just the Hudson, but the subways and Long Island Railroad during that storm?
We could at least put together something, right?
Yeah, because if we can do that, because it wasn't easy to deal with what they had to do.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, so do we need to make a motion for that?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking, because some people say yes and some people say no, so I'm just checking. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, you mean a new adjournment in
A
person?
new adjournment, yeah.
I guess.
Well, it's 1:52, so.
Wait a minute, someone's hand is up.
Oh, someone's hand's up?
Sharon.
Sharon, we didn't even know you were there, I'm sorry.
She has iPad.
You have to unmute, Sharon.
You have to unmute.
Sharon, unmute.
Okay, there you are.
There we go.
This is kind of old business, but I got on the end this morning at 3 in the morning, and there were 3 or 4 people asleep in every car. Are we not monitoring that anymore?
It is being monitored. It has subsided from the high that it was 6 or 7 months ago, but it's still far too much, Sharon. We've spoken with Transit. We've spoken with the Bowery Residents Committee. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
you say
every single
Nancy or
car.
Emmett and Mary.
Yeah.
N?
All right.
Sharon, you said the N as in Nancy train?
That was the Nancy from 59th Street to Astoria Boulevard. And in every car, there were 2 or 3 people asleep. It was unbelievable.
This was today, this morning?
Yes, this morning at 3 a.m. on my way to LaGuardia.
Yep, thanks.
I mentioned it to you the other day.
All right, do we have anybody else before we conclude?
Make a motion to new business. We'll make a motion to adjournment.
All right, we have a
Second.
motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.